Hello, and welcome to Rogue Artisans and Crafters. Our show is about featuring local artists and craftspeople from within Southern Oregon. We're going to talk to our featured artists about how they came to their work, what drives them as artists, what stories behind their art process, and how their work as artists influences their lives. Today we have the privilege of featuring local Mosaic artist, Karen Rycheck. Karen is known as Miss Mosaic. A lot of her work is done as large form public installations, and I've found her mosaic work to be quite amazing, and I'm pleased to be able to introduce her work to our audience. So, Karen, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You're quite welcome. We're happy to be able to talk about your work and showcase what you do. To begin with, how long have you been working as a professional artist?
Gosh, I graduated college in '94 and did some other things before actually getting into mosaics in '97.
Okay.
But ever since then, I've been pretty much continuously doing art.
Okay, so what was it that brought you to the arena of mosaic art as a medium?
I was aware of it for a long time, but I actually studied in Europe whenever I was in school for a couple of months, and was in Vienna, Austria, and there was one night after we were at the bar and missed the bus back to the hotel. We had to walk back, which was several miles, and came upon this amazing sculptural incinerator plant, believe it or not, that was completely encrusted in mosaic. And it's absolutely stunning, and it was all lit up, and I was just floored. I just stood there going, what is that?
Yeah, right, yeah.
And it turned out to be the work of a well-known artist over there, Friedrich Hunterwasser, who has since passed on, but he really was a huge influence to me. And once I found out about him, and he also did a lot of eco building and different types of work. He was very prolific, and that's where it started.
Okay. So prior to your discovery of mosaic, what was it that you were doing artistically? What was it that fueled your artistic soul?
I actually had studied paper making primarily in school, but it wasn't sheet paper. I was using it as a sculptural medium.
Right.
So I was using the pulp and making forms that I would then apply the pulp to, and whenever it dried, it would shrink around everything, and it was almost like a skin. It looked like a leather skin once it was dried. So I was doing sort of large-scale sculptures with that.
Okay, so your most of your work is kind of large-oriented.
Yeah.
So
I don't know why that is. It always has been that way. Even when I started in mosaics, the first place I worked was extremely large scale because we were mosaicing basically what used to be an old parking garage, and it was turned into a place called the City Museum in St. Louis, Missouri, which was the brainchild of another sculptor artist, Bob Casserly, and he would come in with a ginormous Sharpie in one hand and just draw things on the floor, and then turn to his team and say, okay, go for it. And we were supposed to mosaic whatever he had drawn. Basically, it was just an outline, kind of cartoon of whatever. And we had donated to us all these recycled tiles from different companies and a couple semi-truckloads of tile. So we would go up and just pick through and decide what colors to use in which spots and bring it back down and get to work. And we did that for 12 to 8 hours a day, every day for a couple of years.
So is that the typical process towards creating a mosaic piece? Is you're working on a specific outline of design before you start?
It varies widely, just like any other art form. In that instance, that is the way that we worked because he was the designer. So in my own work, it goes several different ways. If I am doing a commission and somebody wants something very specific, it will start with a drawing or sketch or something that's then approved by the commissioner.
Right, okay.
And then I will start to work, and it pretty much stays true to the design. But,
Now is that design process, does that get pretty detailed, or is it kind of just casual, work out the general shape and outline, or do you get to do like a color rendition of what something's going to look like, and then you go to
for clients I do color sketches for
Okay.
sure, so that they can approve or not
Right. Yeah.
what we're doing. But yeah, for the most part, that's how I do it with clients. When I'm doing my own work, I don't do any of that.
So it's more like a free form thing
Yes.
when you're doing your own
Yes,
thing?
very much so.
Okay.
Very much so.
Now, what specific materials are you using in the construction of your mosaic pieces? Because, I mean, I know that like tile seems to be like a common
Yeah.
material element, but are there other materials that you're also using?
There's, I pretty much will use anything. I've done mosaics in a lot in ceramic because I do handmade tile as well. But I've done records and CDs
Right,
in
okay.
one. I did a portrait of Ella Fitzgerald out of records and
Yeah,
CDs.
that's in the that's among the images
okay.
that we've got to bring
Okay.
up.
I use a combination of handmade tile and commercial tile. I use slate quite a bit in some of my newer work. Glass and glass tiles, metal tiles. It just depends what's moving me at the moment.
Okay.
It changes.
You mentioned slate. I'm a pool player, so I'm very familiar with slate because it goes into the pool tables that I play in.
Yeah.
You're right. But I imagine that your slate tiles are a lot thinner than what goes into a typical pool table.
Well, I started, somebody gave me a bucket of scrap tile that they had used to make a porch in the back of their house.
Yeah.
And it sat in my garage for, in my studio for several months before I ever did anything with it. And then one day I just started playing around with it and cutting it in smaller pieces and then shearing it so that it became very, very thin, and was really intrigued by what you could do with it that way.
Yeah.
And so that's when I started really going at it full bore. People really liked it. It was interesting. I just started making tiny pieces
Right. Yeah.
as sort of sketch ideas. And as soon as I would post them on Facebook, they would sell. And I was like, wow, this is great. It doesn't usually happen for artists.
Yeah, most artists are
Yeah,
starving, right?
Yeah. So it was kind of a fun happenstance thing, and I really enjoyed doing them. And so those were more abstract and
Right.
they didn't really have a subject. They were more about color and shape and form. And
So in your freeform work, do you go at each piece with a specific theme or idea in mind, or is it just freeform, free emotional?
well, those particular early ones were just sketches. So no, there wasn't anything. It was the materials themselves
right.
that really told me what to do with them.
Right.
And then once I'd worked with them for a while and knew what they could and couldn't do, I started I did a series that was more planned. And those I based off of satellite photographs
Okay.
of the land, because I've always wanted for years, anytime I'd taken a plane flight, I always got the window seat.
Yeah,
'cause
right,
I
yeah.
love looking at the land from above.
Well, yeah, because it's a fascinating thing to
Yes.
see the patterns of Mother Nature
Yes.
down there on the ground.
Well, Mother Nature combination with man
what man
and what
does,
man
that's
has
right.
done to them.
Yeah,
So
it's some really interesting patterns
Yes.
out there. So yeah, I can see where those visual cues can be inspirational
Yes.
towards things that you'd want to do artistically.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I sort of I've had that idea in the back of my head for 20 years or more, and finally had the opportunity to do a whole series on that. So it was really fun.
So now you brought some sample pieces that we have on display here, and we can start off with you got a big bumblebee here.
Yeah.
Now, and I've having picked it up and carried it. That's a pretty heavy piece.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about tile.
adds-
Tile is not light. I always seem to pick heavy mediums. I don't know. Paper making was the lightest thing I ever did, and it was great. But
in a piece like this, for example, what's like the time involved in constructing something like that?
well, for pieces like this one I actually did it also as a sketch and to get familiar with the making of the form itself, because I sculpt the understructure before I even do any of the mosaic on top of it.
Okay.
And I was planning to do a large piece, but I didn't want to have that be my first thing I ever did
Right.
without practicing a little. So I made a couple of smaller works of insects to put out in the garden
Yeah, right.
as practice. So it's insulation foam board that has that's been sculpted, and then you carve it with knives and rasps and all kinds of different things to shape it, and then you coat it with a layer of concrete and fiberglass mesh to give it the hard shell,
Right, okay.
and give the tile a surface to adhere to.
Right, okay.
So that's where some of the weight comes into, although it's a very thin layer of concrete. It's really the tile that gives it.
Yeah.
So the wings are not, they're just painted. There's no anything on them. That's just concrete
Okay.
over foam board.
And the time involved in that process for like this piece?
Gosh, several days to a week probably.
yeah.
I don't know. It's been a long time since
Right,
I
yeah.
made it. I can't remember exactly, but something like that. It's very time consuming. Mosaic's a very slow process.
Yeah, because I mean, I've seen documentaries in the past regarding the process, particularly some of the restoration
Yes.
kinds of work that's
Oh,
done
yes.
in Italy that
Yes.
I've seen.
I have
and-
friends that do that.
yeah.
Yeah.
and they just literally have like a million different colors
Yeah.
of tile that they're just selecting among to try and match up
Yes.
for like restoration kind
Yeah.
of work.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an amazing process.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's all hand-cut tile, so that takes time as well. You're using tile nippers to cut shape.
Right.
And when it's three-dimensional, the pieces have to be quite small so that they can create a rounded effect, so that there's not all these jagged angles sticking out.
And then we have a piece here that's next to you.
Yeah.
That is it's part of a series, right?
Yes.
That you've done
Right.
of various house forms. Is that something when you do like a series like that? They're all individual, unique, one-off kinds of pieces. And is that kind of like an ongoing series for you? That kind of a or do you once you do a series then it's like on to new ideas?
Well, I did a series. I sold them all
Yeah.
to one person
Yeah.
as a town.
Okay.
That's what I call them, Mosaic Town.
Right.
And then, I was just inspired to do another series because I liked them so much. I kind of missed having them around.
Yeah.
So I made another series and I sold several of those, and the remainders are in my own yard.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'll probably make more in the future
Yeah.
just because they're fun.
Yeah.
I like doing, I do such a combination of types of work, some
Right.
very serious and sort of muted, but then these are so fun and whimsical, and I really enjoy doing that. That's kind
Yeah.
of like play for me.
Right. Okay.
So,
And then we happen to have also in here, like you got a fairly large piece here. What all is the material that has gone on into like this particular piece?
it's primarily all slate, just different colors of slate. That's one of the things I found fascinating about the process of shearing the slate into thin pieces is that it'll often be a different color inside than outside.
Right. Okay.
And you don't know that until you actually break it open.
Right.
So it's
okay.
like it reveals the surprise inside of itself. So it's primarily slate. Then there's some silver-coated, what's called smalti, which is the Italian word for glass mosaic pieces.
Okay.
It's a special process where they pour a slab of glass, and then they take a silver leaf and adhere it to the top of the glass, and then put a really thin coat of clear over top of it to seal it in. And that's what's used a lot in the churches in Italy. It was originally used because they were lighting the churches by candlelight.
Right. Okay.
And so anything that had reflective qualities was really prized because it would really catch that candlelight and
Right.
sparkle, and so much more than fresco, which is sort of a flat medium. You can, usually the frescoes are down more at eye level, but up in the canopies of these churches, there were just these gorgeous gold leaf mosaics that really would wow the masses back in the day, So, and still, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's. I mean, I look at that piece and I'm amazed at one. I have to imagine how much time is involved to put that together, to kind of plan it out. But the variety of textures and colors, I find it really appealing. And I imagine that has to be, as the artist working in the medium, that combination of variety of textures and colors is something that kind of influences you and drives you to.
Oh, definitely. And that's what's fun about it, is you don't really know how the stone's going to break until it breaks. I mean,
Right.
you have a certain amount of control over your skill set, but beyond that, the stone, like I said, it kind of holds these secrets inside of it, and whenever you cut it open and how it breaks, can make some really interesting formations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we wanted to bring up, we have some digital images of some of your art that we want to bring up to kind of talk about. And here's like an example. This is apparently something you did for the Medford Police Department.
Yeah, this is brand new. This just went up about a week and a half ago at the
Okay.
most. We haven't even had the dedication yet.
Oh, okay.
Dedication's going to be on Monday.
All
I mean,
right.
not Monday, Wednesday at 11. And this is all, it's a memorial sculpture for a fallen officer
Oh, okay.
from back in the 30s, George Prescott.
Okay. And that would be where I believe Prescott Park was named after
Yes,
him.
that's correct.
Which is on Roxanne Hills up there.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So
Yeah.
let's go to the next image.
And then this one was installed this summer over in the Ashland watershed on the
Okay.
Bandersnatch Trail.
Okay.
This was a series of pieces that they commissioned 3 different artists to do,
Yeah.
and mine was the second.
Okay.
And it's a totem called Water is Life,
Okay.
and it just represents the different creatures that live in the watershed or are affected by clean water, and the value of what that brings to us here in the valley.
Okay. So let's go to the next one. Now that looks like a pretty long piece.
Yeah, it's 28 feet long.
Wow.
It's about 2.5 feet tall, and this is the horses of the Equimore Foundation, which is a horse rescue outside of Ashland,
Oh, okay.
out towards Emigrant Lake.
Okay.
And they're a wonderful not-for-profit that takes in abused and neglected horses from all over the place, and they live there for the rest of their lives.
Oh,
It's
okay.
basically a place for them to
All
to
right.
rehab and
Yeah, it sounds
you
like a
know be
wonderful
treated well.
organization.
Yeah, so I just wanted to highlight them. I also
Yeah.
added a lot of other animals from the Rogue Valley within it,
Right.
so it's sort of a little hide and seek kind of a mural. It's fun for the kids to come up there and look at it and
Yeah.
find little.
Okay. And I believe we have another one that follows that's also like a kind of a detail. There you go.
Yeah. So and it's all handmade tile
Right.
that I made. So it's sort of done as a reverse mosaic where I laid the clay out and then cut the pieces into the clay and reassembled it as a mosaic.
So now the colors that I'm seeing there, you know, the browns, the light browns, the dark browns.
Yeah.
Now is that the natural colors of the tile, or
No,
is that,
no, no,
or is that
that's-
like painted?
It's an underglaze.
Okay.
An underglaze with a clear glaze on top of it. So
Okay.
underglazes are almost like a paint.
Okay.
In that they're somewhat related, more so than normal glazes,
Yeah.
to their actual finished color.
Yeah, because I see in this detail, there's like a resemblance to like what you also see in like stained glass kinds of effect. So I find that interesting that you get that through tile mosaic work as well. And then the next image?
And then that's another slate piece that was in show here in Ashland, over at SOU.
Okay.
There was a Mosaic Summit that we had in Ashland for 3 years running, and this was from back in 2015, I think.
Okay.
Maybe 2016.
Right. And the next one?
This is a piece that I did with a good friend, Nienow, and it's at the McMinnville Library.
Okay.
They were redoing the front outside of their library, and they had this statue donated to them, this bronze frog that's sort of like the thinker.
Yeah.
And they called him Booker T. Frog.
Oh, okay.
But the T stands for thee, which
Yeah.
I thought was silly. But we decided we want to make a lily pond for him to sit in and think.
Yeah.
So, and I made some little tadpoles in the water to teach the kids how the life cycle of the frog went.
Okay. And go to the next one.
This is a piece at a residence in Talent, and I was commissioned to do the medallion at the doorway.
Right. And I believe the next one is, I think, a close-up of that one, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's like what's actually in the
paving.
In the paving. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's a more classical style piece.
Yeah,
which I haven't done a lot of, but I enjoy doing.
It makes me think of like Mediterranean kind of a flair to it.
Yeah, well, their house has that feel to it,
right,
so I was really trying to play off of what already existed there.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And the next one.
These were some stair risers I did for a home in Ashland. She really wanted to jazz her front stoop up, and it made such a difference. I love doing the before and after pictures.
Yeah, that's really nice. Makes for a colorful entryway.
So I made her a garden.
Yeah, yeah.
Flower garden. So it's year round. It's always bright, and even in the winter, she's got some flowers out there.
And let's go to the next one.
And this was a piece done for Grants Pass.
Okay.
It's called. There was a series of these done there called History Underfoot, and this one was pieces that were historic places or places of pride.
Right. Yeah. Okay, and let's go to the next one.
Yeah, and this is the first sculpture. So that's what I did. The bee and all the other bugs for was to prep for making this. So this is made out of insulation foam board, believe it or not.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And it is a full-sized fainting couch that you can sit on, and it's actually quite comfortable, even though it's tiled. And it was sort of my homage to all the painters that did reclining nudes as their subject matter.
Okay.
So,
and then I believe there's another couple more that followed, kind of detail-oriented of that particular piece.
So that piece is over at Pascal Winery.
Right. Okay.
It's still for sale. If anybody would like to buy it, I'd love for them to buy it. It was a really fun piece to do.
Yeah. And I believe there's one more in this sequence. So let's go to the next one. Yeah, so that's
the
like
close-up.
a real close-up.
Yeah.
I mean, I imagine that there's got to be, I mean, we're talking about like several thousand individual pieces of tile.
I don't even count.
I wouldn't even want to count
it's
that.
too daunting to count. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, let's go to the next one. And then this is your Mosaic town.
Yeah, my little garden art pieces.
Yeah.
They're really fun, and that's all handmade tile with a little bit of commercial tile mixed in.
Yeah. And let's go to the next one.
And that's one of the slate sketches that I started with, that I was talking about.
Right, okay. And let's go to the next.
This was my very first commission for a home in Ashland, over in the Railroad District, and they wanted sort of a Greek market theme.
Yeah.
And it took about a year and a half. It's a handmade tile with marble behind it as the background.
All right. And then go to the next. Now that's Ella Fitzgerald.
That's Ella Fitzgerald, made out of old records and CDs. And I always like to say, none of Ella's records were harmed.
Okay, well that's a good thing. Yeah, we want to make sure that,
I used a lot of Lawrence Welk.
Yeah.
Sorry. And this is a scarab beetle.
Yeah.
That I did as one of my first glass mosaics that I made. I love this piece.
Yeah. And I think, is there one more? I think there's one more. Yeah.
Right. This is the first commission that my team and I did
Right.
in St. Louis.
Okay. Yeah.
Along with that crazy snake that winds around the doorway there.
Well, it's an amazing variety.
Yes.
Of what you achieve.
Yes.
With your craft. So I find that one of the cool aspects about what you do. Now, if someone wants to commission you for a project or to buy a piece, how do they go about getting a hold of you?
They can go to my website, missmosaic.com, and contact me there
Right.
on the contact page.
Okay. And in general, what would be kind of like the general range of project costs for someone from like your small to like something like your bigger pieces, like what you've kind of just shown?
Well, the barbecue kitchen that we showed before was a $20,000 commission.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's understandable.
So that's probably my most expensive to date, and then I'd say most of the pieces start around $100.
Right. Okay, so there's some reasonable. Okay.
Yeah, there's quite a range depending on what you do.
Well, Karen, I thank you very much for coming on to the show.
Thank you.
So, we've reached the end of our show, Rogue Artisans and Crafters, and we thank you at home for joining us and learning about our featured artist, Karen Rycheck. And we thank Karen for being our featured artist and appearing on our show to discuss her life and work. And we also want to thank our crew who's made it possible to put this show together, and to thank RVTV for their wonderful studio facility that allows us to produce shows such as ours. And if you'd like to become a studio producer and create your own public access show, you can contact RVTV to learn how. Please make sure to check out Karen Rycheck's website where you can get more information about her art. I'm your host, David Glamour Dave Nienow, and we will see you next time. So that's the end of the show.
All right.
Well, get